Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Men of Valor podcast. I'm here with one of my close friends and fellow executives, Mr. Randal Ballew, coming at us from Arkansas this morning. Kind of a brisk morning for a podcast. How you doing, Randal?
Man, doing good. Excited to hang out with you, man. It's been a while since you and I have been able to do one of these together. So looking forward
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah, my daughter Jessie asked me this morning. She said, "Dad, is it hard to do a podcast?" I said, "Not when you're talking with your friends." I said, "We'll just make up stuff or whatever, but you don't really have to prep when you're just having a conversation with people you like and people you get along with." So yeah, it's good to catch up with you. And yeah, it's cold, man. I'm recording in my garage, and it's brisk. It's brisk. You cold down your way?
Yeah, it's pretty chilly. It's probably about 30, 32 degrees. So we're
Ooh,
just now kind of starting that decline. But Arkansas is weird, man. We go from 80 to 30. There is no fall. And then it'll get down, in the teens and single digits, and we'll
wow.
all die. And then we'll come back to life in the spring. So.
I love it. Well, we'll go ahead and get into our conversation on the podcast and do some announcements at the end. But again, we just want to thank you guys for joining us, and let's go ahead and just get after it. This is the Men of Valor podcast. We exist to help men grow as disciples of Jesus.
Welcome to Season 2. We're glad you're here.
Let me tell you, I once was a sinner, but I am no longer a sinner. I am a saint. I am a son of the living God Most High.
Go home, embrace your wife with no expectations, and tell her that you love her. And ask her, how can I lead you? Tell me what you need. Be transparent, be open, be honest.
But if we arm ourselves and we never use what we have, that's useless.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. Here are your hosts, Travis Watson, Eric Stewart, Jordan Loggins, and Randal Ballew. Let's get after it.
All right, guys, and welcome back to the Men of Valor podcast. Again, just Travis Watson here with Randal Ballew, and just so glad to be with my friend. We are in Season 2, episode number 11, second week in December, and the second week on our topic. We've been talking about finances. And Randal, I kind of stuck it to you and Jordan with the schedule this month. You got it twice, and Jordan has it twice. So looking to you guys for all the answers, obviously, in this area of finances. How do you feel like it went last week? What was your take on the first podcast?
I would encourage all of you to listen to the wise words of Jordan Loggins. The other guy, you take it for what it is. No, it was very educational and helpful. And
Yeah.
man, Jordan and I were talking afterwards. We can only be transparent.
Mm.
I'm not going to do one of these episodes or talk about something and act like I know all about it. There are different topics in scripture that I could talk about and feel pretty confident that, I've studied that, I know it, and I can speak on it. This is one of those topics that I'm just going to have to be honest. This is a big struggle of mine, and this is something that I'm working to grow in every single day.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Jordan and I had such a good conversation last week, because we don't know how to be anything else but honest.
Yeah, that's good, and I love that. That's how we all strive to be here on the team. And just I'm right with you. I definitely want to give this cursor to anybody tuning in. We are not experts on finances. We can talk about failures, maybe some successes that God has blessed us with along the way, but ultimately, men in progress, men learning. And again, it's the beauty of a community of men of valor that you can balance one another out and go to one another and say, hey, I'm a little bit weak in this area. I loved yesterday the group thread you and I are in. I won't get into the particulars, but just sharing some theological stuff back and forth about how we're growing, and God's just shaping different things and awakening our hearts to different truths and things that we feel maybe some conviction about or whatnot. And that's what it's about, being able to hear someone else's experience, stories, wins and failures, and saying, what can I take from that? How can I learn? How does that challenge me? I think one of the things you even said yesterday was, I've always thought this is my previous view, but now looking at scripture, this is my new view. And it's like, I love that approach, that everything should prompt us to kind of ask questions as men, like, how am I doing in this area? What does scripture have to say about it? And am I lining up with that? So good stuff. I said at the beginning, talking to Eric a little bit ago, I was going to point everybody to my financial advisor, Mr. Eric Stewart. So anything we say in error, please go to Eric about. He would love to address these things with you. So last week, you guys talked about managing money well and what that looks like. And these topics this week and next week, they're all going to kind of cross over each other a little bit. And that's okay too. Again, our hope is just through us talking about some stuff, God will prompt something in your own life. But today we're going to spend a little bit of time about talking about getting out of debt, which is obviously part of managing money well. And I'm coming up on 50 in 2024 this new year. So I've got some experience with debt and can probably talk more about how to go about things the wrong way. But I've also seen God's hand work and lead us and guide us through that. So maybe give us an overview, Randal, a little bit again, just what finances, like, how does that play out in your home? Is that something you do primarily on your own? Do you do it with your bride? Does your bride take lead and you follow, or you completely remove? Like, what does it look like for you personally?
In our home, I handle 100% of finances. And man, that is not because I'm a control freak. It's not because I don't trust my wife. It's simply because it stresses her out to the point where she doesn't quite, I don't want to say she doesn't understand it, because she's more than capable of understanding it all. But if that is a burden that I can bear in our marriage that she doesn't have to worry about, then I will gladly bear that.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
To be honest with you, it's good for us because it frees her up to lead in other areas. And man, when areas where I fall short, like, she is 100% the nurturer and provider of needs in the home.
That's
And
good.
so it works really well together. I pay the bills. Now I say pay the bills, like I physically pay the bills. Like, I log into the app and I pay this, pay that, whatever. That said, would starve to death without my wife. Cannot begin to underestimate when you look at bring home this and that. I make more money than my wife, and I don't say that to put her down. It's just a reality. However, without what she makes, without the effort she puts in, our children don't get to go to the school they go to. We don't have groceries. We don't get to do things that we want to do. And when there are times where I'm in a bind, she can bail me out. And she's done that, countless times over the past several years. She is way better at saving money than I am. I'm terrible at saving money. She can save money really well, but that's just kind of our layout. We have 2 checking accounts. I know people frown upon that, but it works for us. She operates a business out of hers. My paycheck and everything goes into mine, pay the bills out of it. It works for us. We've always done that since we've been together. I have 100% access to hers. I have a debit card to her account. She has 100% access to mine, has a debit card to my account. There's no questions asked. But for us, Travis, where this has been helpful in this 2-account mindset is, if there's something that she wants to go buy, I don't have to worry that it's going to affect whether or not I can pay the electric bill. She works hard. For the love of God, she can go buy whatever the heck she wants, right? I'm not going to tell her, here's your allowance. We live in 2023.
Plus, I know Miss Lauren would have a field day with you.
She has more than enough right to go buy whatever she wants. But that's also in her turn. But there's also that level of trust that, we're not going to be stupid.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a short summary of how we do
That's
things.
good though, because it's a different perspective and different not view, but approach. Approach would be a good word. Different approach than we use in our house. So what we do is Nikki is the one that handles all of our budget. A lot of you know that my wife and I are divorced, remarried. So prior to that, my first marriage of nearly 15 years, I handled all the finances exclusively, much like you. Uh, my first wife didn't want to know anything about where the money was, how much money there was, or anything. She just wanted to know if she went shopping, she could charge it and money would be there or whatnot with debit card, however that worked. So I've always done that, and I had no problem with that. What I discovered with Nikki when we came together, she was very good with money, very good. She worked 3 jobs at the same time, putting herself through college, managed financial stuff through college, managed all of that kind of stuff, and was just really good at it. And so when we came together, we had big conversation about it and just said, hey, if you love doing it and you're comfortable doing it, then you keep running the budget and we'll just talk about it every month and make sure we're on the same page. And what you described in one sense is exactly what we do and what I think is healthy for couples to do. And that is to talk about it, to give each other complete access, to not have things hidden from the spouse. I know I've talked to some guys and it's like, oh, she doesn't want to know anything. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but they should at least have the right, if they ever did want to know, to access it on their own independently without having to, go to the bank and get a report ran or something like that. So we have found that works for us. And, for us, the topic today is getting out of debt. So when we got married and came together, both of us coming off the divorces, we inherited massive amounts of debt. And as such, I remember a couple times the first few months we were together, even going to the grocery store and having to leave groceries on the conveyor belt and walk away because our debit card was rejected. Some of you can relate to that. Both of us having our cars repoed within the first couple months of being together because we couldn't afford to pay them. I mean, the amount of debt that we just collected through those divorces was overwhelming. So we ended up filing bankruptcy within the first year of being together. And so I know a little bit of something about debt and how to get out of it and the struggles and even the shame, embarrassment that money can seek to project on us. But I want to just say, as we get started and throw it back over to you, Randall, what matters most, whatever approach you guys use, is trust and communication. I think you'll run into more problems in your marriage if those 2 things are missing. And like you said, too, even the separate accounts, I think that's awesome how you guys do that she can do her business out of one, she can have access, all that kind of stuff. But it works because you talk and because you trust one another. And if those are missing, you're going to be in big trouble. So Nikki gets down. She's been using the same notebook for the last 11 years. I think we've been together. And every month, she's front and back on pages and we just look at it. This is where we are and we talk through it. So anything I said there, raise a, hey, I got a question, or that's weird, or anything unusual I need to be corrected on.
No, I agree. I think
Yep.
communication is key. There are going to be guys who, hear me say that we have 2 accounts and they're immediately going to discredit every single thing I say
Sure.
outside of that.
Sure.
And listen, I respect their opinion, and I'm not saying that they are wrong. I'm not saying that I'm wrong. I'm just saying we do things different.
Yeah.
It works for us. There's never, I think in 12 years, out of all the things that we've had arguments about, finances and raising our children have not been those 2 things.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Just because we communicate on those things.
Yeah.
And I'll get into it in a little bit more when we talk through some things, but I did not have, I mentioned this last week, but I did not have any kind of guidance when it came to finances. Nobody ever taught me how to do anything. I never understood what it was to open a bank account. I did all of that on my own. Like, it was all on the fly, on my own. I didn't know what happened when you went over your spending limit on a debit card with your account and you were in the hole. I didn't know they were going to charge you $35. I just thought, oh, well, I've got paid. I'll get paid tomorrow, so it'll reset, whatever. What I'm saying is I didn't know any of this. there have been different individuals over the past several years that have been helpful. My father-in-law, one of them, and I will speak to kind of him in just a little bit, but and just other people that I've seen and that I've watched, kind of how they do things, and I've taken a little bit here and there. I think the important thing to remember, Travis, is when we talk about finances, is you have to do what works for your family,
Yes.
but what will also, most importantly, bring honor to God.
Yeah.
So it has to work specifically for you. You can't take, and listen, we can talk about Dave Ramsey. I have no beef with Ramsey. He does his thing, and I follow some of his stuff. I'm not eating beans and rice. I grew up poor. I ate enough beans and rice when I was a kid. All right. I'm going to eat good because I want to. And so he has some really good qualities, really good things that he does. But that doesn't necessarily work universally for everybody to the
Right.
T. Right?
I love what you said there about what works for you. This is back to one of our core values that we talk a lot about. We don't have it written down as a core value anywhere, but we talk a lot about leading and loving well. Leading well does not mean that, your bride's really good with money and you suck at it, but your mindset is, I'm the man, so therefore I've got to lead, so I'm going to take. No, leading and loving well means that you find what works for you, and you support one another out of that, and love one another well out of that, without bitterness or harshness or anything like that. And that's the whole idea of finding what works for you, because it will be different. There's so many different ways to save money, different ways to budget, different ways to do expenses. I mean, there are apps online you can get for it. There are books you can get for it. I mean, all kinds of things, right? So the bottom line is find what works for you, and then encourage each other in those areas. One of the things I try and do on a regular basis is thank my bride for just how diligent she is, making sure that we are faithful stewards of the resources that God has given us, because I want her to know I value that and I appreciate that in her. So I love just how you worded that. I think that's really, really, really important. And then lastly, for at least this section, and then I want to throw it to you for some ideas on how we can begin to work ourselves out of debt, or some things we can do to help get out of debt. I think it's important too that maybe you and your spouse, if you're married, maybe you're on your own, and this is applicable to you as well, but maybe you're not good at money and maybe your spouse isn't good at money. And so then it's like, so what do? We both suck at it. I think it's really important that you do bring in a third party. And again, we can talk about some of those later on in the episode if necessary. But look to someone that is good with money and say, hey, can you help us? Can you provide some guidance? Is there some resources you can point us to? Maybe they don't have the time to spend with you, but they could say, hey, here's some things you can look at. Here's some really good tools where you can grow in this area. I think being a faithful steward, to me, is like all the other disciplines of the Christian life. It's one we're expected to grow in and to do well at. Not, well, I'm not good at money, so I can't be a good steward. That's just not going to fly. So if you do struggle, I just want to say up front, look for somebody that can point you in some directions. Because again, you even mentioned Dave Ramsey. It's like that's not for everybody. Some people will consume Dave Ramsey like crack cocaine. And then others, it's like, oh, this is like dry sand in a hot place. I just want nothing to do with it. So you got to find what you're comfortable with and what works for you. So what are some of the things or some direction we can start in as far as you have found that help you, work for you in this area of getting out of the debt that we find ourselves in sometimes?
Travis, we have to begin at the beginning of the debt, and so we have to classify our debts. And listen, I want to be honest with you. There's some good debt and there's some bad debt, and then there is some out of your control debt. You have a health crisis and you go to the doctor and you have to have emergency surgery. You can't control the fact that you're going to have a ridiculous amount of hospital debt. You can't. That's an uncontrollable factor, right?
Yeah.
But then there are factors that you have somewhat of a control on. You have a desire to get an education. You have a desire to grow in your field. So you take out a loan for pursuing that education. That is debt that can come with great reward, right? But then we also have, on the other end, stupid debt. You have a truck that's paid for, it's running great, but you want the newest, biggest, baddest thing. So you go get stuck underneath an $80,000 debt, right? So I think there's really three tiers. Stuff that's out of our control that you're just going to have to deal with, right? Now you can be prepared to approach that, but at the end of the day, there are things that are just going to happen. Then there's stuff that could have positive benefits, that maybe it's an investment. And I hate to use the term investment when we talk about debt, but you desire to get an education.
Sure.
You don't have any other way to pay for it, right? Maybe that's that second tier. But then we also have the stupid debt. I'm going to go buy this because I have this credit line, and next thing you know, it's out of control. So we must begin with classifying this debt and realizing what is a need, what is a want,
Yeah,
and what is out of our control. And if we approach it that way, then it kind of helps us understand, where this money is going and why it's going in these places. When we talk about debt, we have to remember that it can be the most crippling thing in the life of a believer. I would be bold enough to say 70 to 80% of the stress in my life is financial stress, is the worry of, is this going to happen? And maybe that's developed for me growing up the way I grew up. But I read in Hebrews 13, and it says, keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. Man, it's really hard to be content with what you have when everybody else around you has so much more, right? My truck tried to die dropping my kids off at school today. It does it every single day. I would love to drive a 2023 brand new pickup, right? It's just not smart for me to cripple myself and put myself and my family in a terrible financial situation because of something I want. Now, flip side of that, my truck blows up today, this afternoon. I'm left without a vehicle. I've got a decision I've got to make, right? I don't have $10,000 sitting around that I can use. Now, you want to go even further. That would be the wise thing to do. Save that emergency fund, build that up so you don't have to do that. Realistically, very few percentage of people have that kind of solid emergency fund. That's just the reality. So we have to begin with classifying the debt. What is out of our control? What is in our control? And what's really unnecessary.
Yeah, that's wow. If you take nothing else away from this month's topic, just that truth alone would do wonders for all of us. And I can relate to all of those. Been there, done that. I remember preaching at Eric's church about 4 or 5 years ago and talking about wanting a truck real bad. And we do live in a materialistic society where we're constantly pressured to have the latest and greatest. It can be phones, laptops, cars, whatever. And we all know, let's be real, man. We know a month after we have it, the newness wears off and it's just like, doesn't give us that same feeling. And so really, and we'll talk about the gospel a little bit at the end of this episode, but really it is a gospel issue. It comes down to our heart and what we're serving, what we're bowing down to. And it doesn't mean that you can't have the 2023 truck. If God's blessed you and you can incur that, hey, good on you. And you can use that for your family, for your community, or whatever. What a blessing that is. But at the same time, if that's the things that are driving us, we are going to struggle across the board because we're starting from a place where our heart's not where it should be to begin with. And so everything else we decide after that's going to be tainted. And you talked about stress. I've been stress-free since Nikki and I met and came together, got married, and she's handled fine. Been stress-free in the area of finances. Even though we went through bankruptcy and everything else, and went through a repo and things like that, I know the debilitating nature that finances can be. I remember many a time just hoping that something would come in so we could get gas money at Christmas to drive to see my sister. The stress of, are we going to be able to pay our mortgage payment next month, because we're spending ourselves crazy right now. And trying to keep up with the Joneses. Right out of college, I went to work up in New York City and made great money in a very short amount of time, pulling in a ton of money. And sadly, when I left that job 6-7 years later, I had nothing to show for it. Yeah, we had nice furniture and a condo and things like that, but the cars and clothes, all that stuff, just nothing. I look back now and think, I'm sure I've wasted close to $1 million in my life on stuff. And so don't want to disvalue the stress that Randall mentioned. Let's be real. And I know some men that are listening to us right now, Randall, I'm sure they feel, especially with the holidays. That's why we kind of picked December for finances. I'm sure you're feeling not just the pressure to make sure your family has what they want, but also the stress that comes with that pressure that can be just all consuming, overwhelming, to where you want to crawl up in a hole and die. I just want to say, I don't think God ever intends us to live that way. And you need freedom from that, because it will crush your soul, and not just in finances. It'll crush you across the board to where you're making poor decisions in every area of your life. So thank you for leading with that. That was good. Wants, needs, those are two very important concepts. And then things that you just can't control, called life, right? In a broken world, it happens. And I can testify, I've seen Randall work up some real handyman solutions to surviving in the Arkansas heat, as well as just keeping his vehicles going. And I love that. I mean, believe me, at 50, I don't want to be driving a 15-passenger van any more than the next guy. I'd love to have something sleek and cool. But hey, it's what God's provided and what we need for our family. So it's working. But
Yep.
so what are some practical things you do when finances are tight, or maybe there is like one of those debts that was beyond your control, you had to take it on, or whatever? How do you begin to work out of that? What are some things you've done or noticed works for you?
When Lauren and I first got married, we were married a short time, and then we found out about 6 months after we got married that she was a couple weeks pregnant. And so, within the first year of our marriage, our minds immediately shift to, it's time to have a baby.
Mm.
Well, I had a job where I was making $300 a week, and she was just starting a business. And this is 2011, 2010, and we didn't have any extra. Well, I had saved up, and about 2 weeks before we found out she was pregnant, I bought a Jeep, and I wanted it. I found the one I wanted. I saved up, paid cash. It was my baby. Drove it for the summer, and then realized I've got to sell it. And Travis, I think that's something that we have to do. When you get yourself in a position where it's just not enough at the end of the month, or there's this big bill coming up, look around, see what you got in the house, on the shelf, in the closet, in the garage, in the yard, and figure out what you're not using and sell that stuff, man. You can always replace it. You can always replace it. Sell that stuff and get rid of it. Give yourself some peace. But then, man, my father-in-law has always been an influence in my life when it comes to finances, because he has the greatest work ethic of anyone I've ever seen. The guy just hustles. He sees a way to make money, and he makes money, and he does it above reproach. I mean, he is a man of high morals, high standards, but he's not afraid. I mean, he worked as the mayor of the small town we moved from for, I don't know, 12, 15 years. And when the drainage system was backed up, he was the dude in the ditch unclogging the drainage system. And so I say all that to say this: I am a firm believer that if you are hungry and you are broke, there are ways to make money. I'm 32 years old. I got a full-time job, chasing my kids all over the place, playing sports, trying to spend time with my wife. I get 1 day off a week and I rake leaves. Like, I hate raking leaves, but I do.
Yeah.
Because, man, it's a way that I can supplement my income. And
Yeah.
so I've always thought to myself, if there's a way to make money and I need money, then I'm going to do what it takes. So many people just sit back and want a handout. And I'm not going to dive off into that topic, but we get ourselves in these terrible financial situations, but then we expect someone else to bail us out. That's just this is not reality, right? Take your lawnmower, go knock on some doors, go grab a shovel, go grab a rake, go get your computer, get whatever ability, skill you have, and go do something on the side.
Yeah.
It's just part of it.
Yep.
It's just part of the hustle. And take that extra shift. Now, you have to have a balance, right? You don't want to neglect your family. You don't want to do these things that are going to, hurt your marriage or your children, or going to take too much of your time. But in 2023, dude, there are so many ways to make extra income by just putting forth effort.
Yeah.
Getting out of debt requires effort.
Yeah.
It's not going to just happen overnight.
That's good. And the two things I want to say to that is, one, if you do have a means, you've discovered it, whatever it might be, to earn a little extra cash, don't go and blow that right away on something fun. If you're doing it to pay for something, right? If your transmission's gone on your car and you figured out how to bring in an extra $200 or $300 a month, put that $200 or $300 towards that debt. Like, pay that sucker off before you start saying, I want to go play with this money and buy something fun. If you don't know, there's some people that are just not creative, that do struggle with coming up with, well, how can, it's great for you to say that, you got your father and all this other stuff. Again, ask somebody, what are some ideas? What are some things? We're blessed. The only debt we carry right now is our mortgage. Our vehicles are all paid off, paid for them in cash. And I'll get into what we do here in a little bit. But if we do have a bill that comes up, we try and pay for it right away with cash, get it taken care of so we don't carry any debt. And so then when we want to do something fun, like my wife and I, every year, we take tax returns, we take bonuses she gets from work, whatever it might be. And we put money aside because we want to love each other well and spend quality time together. And so we go to the Caribbean every year, debt free, spend a week, 2 weeks together. Well, I look for things to do to say, how can we get some extra spending money so we can eat out there every night? We can get the rental car we want, all these other things. And some things work, some things don't. Just prime example, I've just started trying to flip Jordans that I buy at Goodwill for $4 and flip them on Poshmark. Or one of the other, eBay, or one of the other online sites. And some might sell and some might not. But hey, if that brings in an extra $50, $100 a month, that's a couple times my wife and I, easily 3 times probably, eating out on vacation or something like that. And guess what? That might not work. I might not be able to flip them and just say, all right, Jack, here's some shoes. They're a size too small, but you're wearing them because I bought them at Goodwill for $6, whatever. But you have to find those things. You have to try something. Like you said, don't just be lazy. Knock on a door, get a lawnmower. There are so many little things. Do yard work, walk around and you notice someone's got overgrown, just debris and tree branches and stuff. Hey, can I clean that up? I'd be willing to do it for, dirt cheap kind of thing. I'm just looking to make a little extra money. Look for those things, talk to people. And if you are out of debt, then you can maybe save for something else, but don't just go and splurge all the time. I think that's wise too, because if you don't have discipline in that area, you'll very quickly get right back into debt. So don't just look at the side hustle as a means of, all right, now I can go party and get that Jeep I want, or have fun, or whatever else it might be. What type of budgeting system do you use? What works well for you when it comes to money?
Yeah, Travis, that's a great question. And I think what we have to do is, before we even choose a budgeting system, we have to get it all out on the table. you have to lay it all out in front of you, and you have to see what you have, see what you owe. And man, budgeting is real simple. It's real simple. You see what you bring in, you see what you send out, and you try to make sure at the end of the day that it zeroes out, right? Or that it's in the positive. But what we tend to do, and I'm speaking for myself, in years past when we budget, is I would leave certain things out of my budget because I didn't want to maybe realize spending too much money doing that, or I didn't want to, compromise my selfish spending. So, man, for me, I just keep track of it in a note on my phone. I have through our pay system that we get paid here at the church. It comes with some budgeting software that I kind of monitor and use. I'm not 100%, with it, checking it and everything, but I do it enough to the point where I can sleep at night and have peace in knowing the details.
Yeah.
So I'm not blindsided by things. Find something, even if it is a notebook, man. Find something, write it down. If you have access to a cell phone, you have access to all kinds of budget apps. And
Right.
I could go through and tell you all the ones I've used. Some I like, some I don't like. But for me, it's really simple. It's just keeping a note in my phone, seeing what's coming in, seeing what's going out. And what happens, Travis, is when we do these things and we budget, it reveals to us where our spending is, which also reveals to us our heart.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you pull it up, here's the thing. I'm not judging your heart based on your mortgage payment. Now, if your mortgage payment is 5 times higher than it should be and you're living above your means, then that's between you and God. I'm looking at the small expenses. Like if you're spending $600 a month just on fast food alone, you got to think about that. You're choosing a quick meal in a car over a meal at home with family. I mean, and that's such a crazy analogy. And I'm the world's worst. It's hard for us to gather together as a family and sit and eat. But little things like that.
Yeah.
Where is this little stuff going? Because at the end of the month, you look at it and you're like, holy crap,
Mm-hmm.
I've spent so much money on
Yeah.
unnecessary things.
Yeah.
And man, you have to get it all out on the table and find a way to track it and be consistent with it. And what happens, man, if you do that consistently for several years and you get yourself in better position, you don't have to be so strict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be strict for a short time so that you can have some freedom in the end. You
That's
talk about
good.
your trips, you and Nikki using that fund and this and that. I guarantee you, even on those trips where you kind of are freely spending, you're still thinking in your mind, hey, I'm gonna spend this much at this meal so that I can
heck
spend
yeah.
this much at that meal.
Heck yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you don't just lose all sense when you go on vacation, right? Still budget, but you
Yep.
can get to the point where you can do it more freely and not as intense.
Yeah.
What do you guys do as far as budget? I know you mentioned the notebook.
Yeah. So I want to give some push to people listening that are like, and then answer your question. Listen, this is Men of Valor Ministries, right? We're calling you to be men of valor in the area of finances. You don't get to use the lazy excuse of I'm just not good at it. I hate doing it. If you're struggling and it's because you're not putting forth an effort, then you need to suck it up and put forth an effort and stop being lazy, stop being whiny, stop neglecting your responsibility to be a steward, and you need to make an effort. Don't allow excuses to be a reason you're not a good steward of finances. That being said, because I know some guys like that, and I'm pushing them face to face on my end, even like that, dude, suck it up, man up, come on. God's called you to be much more courageous than you're being. So what do we do that works? So I mentioned bankruptcy, that takes years to come out of. We realized that we had, no credit. And like you just said, you can start spending money real quickly on frivolous things that you don't even think about. And without giving you specifics, I got 2 kids in the military. I can tell you, I know for a fact, because I've seen the statements over the years, the bank statements, my kids have spent tens of thousands of dollars tens and tens of thousands of dollars just on fast food because it's convenient, it's quick, and it's what they desire and crave in the moment. Especially in today's world where you can do DoorDash and all this other stuff, and you're spending an extra $12 to get a fry delivered to your house. That's stupid. And unless God's given you unlimited resources, that's just stupid. Uh, so we realize that we can have that tendency too. We just want to eat out. We want to, buy our kids the newest clothes and, cool shoes and hats and all this kind of stuff. And just, we knew if we didn't get very intentional with how we managed our money, we could be right back into debt again, even though we just filed bankruptcy. Great thing about bankruptcy is everything's zeroed out. Bad thing about bankruptcy is you're solely dependent on the money you bring in because you got no credit nowhere. And so we decided the best way, and exactly what you said, you got to get it all out in front of you, know exactly what money you have, what's coming in, and what needs to go out. We used an envelope system, which some people are aware of. And I would say for the first 2 to 3 years of our marriage, we used that. So every time my wife and I would get a paycheck, we would cash that check, bring the cash home, and then we would have envelopes designated grocery, tithe offering, electric bill, gas bill, all the kind of things. And you really have to desire to do this well, or else, like you said, you'll start, let's just have a miscellaneous envelope and let's not budget for that if it happens, and you can get yourself in trouble again if you're not real careful. Well, when we started doing that, we realized very quickly that God had blessed us both with sufficient money coming in, and we began to save like crazy. Just saving cash. We'd get our envelopes together at the end of the month, and it almost became like a fun thing to do, to just see how much cash we could have on hand at the end of the month. And what was amazing, we saw it grow very, very quickly into a substantial amount of savings. It is stupid, Randall, really, the amount of money. And I don't say that we're wealthy or anything, but the amount of money that God's allowed us to put into savings is just, I'm blown away by it. And I'm literally just blown away that we could go from bankruptcy to really being able to face just about any kind of major crisis and not have our world fall in. And part of the reason we did that as well, and I wanted to get into this, I know we're starting to get a little longer in our podcast, but don't want to go too long today, but we wanted to be able to not just give to church, but we wanted to love others well. We knew what it was like to suffer in the area of finances and how much that just feels miserable and sucks. And so we said, God, we want to be able to love other people well. And I don't say that to brag on us. I say this to brag on God. We began to discover that when a need would come up that we could help meet, or we could love on people through financial means, it not only gave us such joy to do that, we've always tried to do it as privately as possible, but in addition to the joy, man, God would bring that money back around in ways that would just floor us. Unexpected bonuses from work, rebates we didn't expect, people across the country that would just say, hey, I know you guys are, going through some stuff or whatever, and or you're doing foster care, and hey, here's some extra money, we wanted to give you. And it's like exactly what we gave to somebody else, kind of thing. I mean, it's the stories we could tell you would blow your mind. You'd just be like, there's no way that's true. Because I used to hear these stories, right? You can't outgive God. I heard that so much growing up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great, until I started living that way. And bro, it really, like Nikki and I, there were times we would cry. There were times we would just laugh because it was so stupid, like the exact amounts almost you would give away. And sometimes I think just for fun, God would double it to the exact amount. Like, oh, you gave this person, whatever, $50. Here's $100 back. And you'd be like, what? Like, that's just dumb, kind of thing. And there's so much freedom in that. You talk about going from a place of just the weight of the world on your shoulders to almost feeling like you're Bill Gates or Bezos or something else, where you can just be like, oh, you got a need here. Let me help you with that. And there was so much joy in that. And so There is beauty, tremendous beauty in coming out of debt, and managing money well, but it takes effort. And so we use the envelope system, and exactly like you said, Randall, we did it for 2 or 3 years until we developed enough discipline, and enough habits in our life to say, okay, now we can do this digitally and still accomplish the same thing, because now our whole lifestyle had changed, and we still do the same thing today. We still look at everything that comes in every month. Again, Nikki's using the same notebook, writes it all down. We look at the end, say, what do we got? What can we put away? What can we do different? We're always thinking that way. And I think that comes from developing those habits. So I want to encourage you guys, if you're listening, what Randall said there was really good. You have to do something long enough until it changes you and changes how you think. I'll just end with this and then throw it back to you. Nikki's a hospital short staff where she's working. And so they're talking here in the new year, she's got to start picking up another day of work every week until they either decide to hire someone or they find someone. And so right away, our very first conversation was, all right, that's extra money that we can save. That's money we can just put away, and we'll trust that God's got a reason for having you work those extra hours. And that's a beautiful thing, because early on in our marriage, if we hadn't done that, I'm sure our thoughts would have been, hey, that's extra income. We can go do this, and we can fly to this place and do that and whatnot. And it feels good to just have a healthy perspective that this is all God's anyway. And I want to manage it in such a way that when I do see him, he's like, hey, good job with the things I gave you. I don't always get that right either. I certainly don't want to. I hope I'm not presenting that to people like, oh yeah, just do what Nikki and I do, and you'll have no worries in life, and it'll be great. But God is so faithful, man. He is faithful.
He is. And, Travis, listening to your story, I think the important thing is that you guys realized you were in a bad place, and you owned it, and you sought help, and you corrected. You might be listening to this, and let's be honest. I mean, it's been an interesting year. Started off the year financially, at peace. Things were great. And as the year's gone on, as things have gotten more and more expensive, things have gotten tight. We've had to slow down. There've been a couple of weeks where it's like, kind of curious about this week, but God always made a way. You may be listening to this, and you may be one of those who is, at the end of every single month, you're looking at, you're looking on the right side of the decimal point, and you're thinking, that was a close one, or crap, I'm in the hole, right? Looking at this. If that's you, and this isn't an infomercial, I'm not even going to say the name of a company. There are some good companies out there, some organizations that will help you in your debt. If you're interested in that, I will gladly talk to you privately, because I've researched these. Some family members, can't go into much detail here, try to remain private.
Sure.
Some family members we have found themselves in a terrible situation, reached out to a company, and the company screwed them. And so I've researched this pretty diligently and found a company that has, they stand by what they do. And then, of course, they've got to make money, but they have proven to help people navigate their debt who cannot do it on their own. Some people just simply don't have the discipline. And so maybe that's you. Maybe you're listening to this and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to save. I'd like to do that. I'm not to the point where I need to file bankruptcy, but I'm crippled every single month. Do some research, right? Do some research. Figure out how you might need to combine some things, move some things around, cancel some things, and start working towards ending those. Cut some things out. But you have to get to the point where you humble yourself enough to realize, man, I can't do this on my own. I got myself in a bad place. I've got to have some outside help, whether that be a person, an individual. And man, sometimes you just have to make sacrifices. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've got it all together and everything's great. We're all one bad decision away from losing everything we have. We say that often. But I am humble enough to go and seek wisdom from people who know how to do things that I don't know how to do. And it took me a while to get there. So Travis, I think that's very important.
Yeah.
You have to own it. When you're in a bad place, when you're in a struggle, when things are not good, you have to own it and seek help from those who have been there, done that. And maybe that means you do your research and you consolidate some things so
Yeah.
you can get them paid off. But it can't just be a helpful situation. You have to have a heart change.
Yeah.
And in that heart change, you have to get to a point where you realize, I hate this. I can't stand this. I never want to live like this again. And so I'm going to do these things, even though they suck and it hurts. And I'm going to do these things, and then I'm going to completely change how I approach this.
That's
right?
good.
So I've seen it time and time again. People will consolidate debt. They'll combine this to one low monthly payment, whatever. Their credit goes up because they're making on-time payments, and then they go right over here and they get more and more debt. And it's like you're completely defeating the purpose. Like, you have an opportunity to find a way out, but yet you dive right back into the deep end. So you have to own it. And I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's what you and Nikki did years ago, is you owned it. You sought wisdom. You probably didn't come up with that envelope system on your own.
No. We researched what works, what fits our personality.
I guarantee you sat down and you asked other people questions. You may have gone to the bank and sat down with a banker. You may have got on the internet. Was the internet working back then?
Dude, don't make me.
Sorry. That was my one.
And you've used it.
No, but seriously, man, like, you guys had to humble yourself to the point where you didn't go around parading with a sign like
No.
Hey, we're broke and we're stupid. Blah, blah, blah. But you go to people you trust and you say, hey, Joe, listen, man, I see that you live, pretty carefree and God's been good to you. How did you do it? Right.
Yeah.
And then you let him tell you things and you apply what he tells you. Right.
Yeah.
It's a multi-step process. You can't just humble yourself to the point of, oh crap, we suck. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to go seek some wisdom. Oh, that's great wisdom. Oh crap, this sucks.
Yeah.
That's great wisdom. I've got to apply this now. Right.
Yeah. That's good. Two things, and then we'll end talking about the gospel. If you're part of the younger generation, can't believe I have to say that since I'm getting up close to 50 next year. If you're part of the younger generation, one, don't buy into this crap that you have to have it now, today, instantaneous gratification. That will kill you. And you might think, well, times are different. That's just how we are, who we are. Well, that might be how you are, who you are, but you get what comes with that. And what comes with that will be stress, anxiety, lack of resources, struggle, difficulty, etc. Like you said, Randall, we're all one bad decision away, right? So don't buy the lie that this is just how it is, or this is how it is today, or whatever. Two, I want to say, again, I bring it back to not to be a Grinch or anything, but don't buy into the narrative too that your kids have to have everything in order for it to be a good Christmas. That's back to a heart issue again. But don't feel the pressure of always having to have it bigger and better than last year. Yeah, but they really want this gaming system, or they really want this new pair of shoes, or whatever. If you can't afford it, don't put yourself in debt to get something just to give to your kids so they'll be happy for a season. Like, that's so unhealthy. So correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think it's ungodly to live that way. I don't think that's God's heart for us, especially as men. He never said, take up your cross and your debit cards and your, your Jordans and everything else. Yes. And let's go change the world. So don't surrender your heart to those concepts that the world will throw out at you. I mean, there's a reason Christmas is marketed from July to December now. There's a reason Christmas music starts in September. It's not because the world loves Christmas. It's because they want every penny that's available out there. And so they will manipulate and use anything to get us to buy into the lies. that this world is all that matters. So don't. Let's end by talking about this being a gospel issue, because I really do believe that our finances factor into the gospel. They reflect the gospel. They demonstrate the gospel. They affect our ability to live out the gospel. You're a pastor, a reverend, supreme pontiff, bishop, whatever title we want to give you. You're a man of God that handles the word beautifully. So from your perspective in ministry and everything else, how does this play out into being a gospel issue? How do you see it?
It's to do with what we value and our priorities. And Travis, I don't know how else to explain this other than being cheesy, but I'm sitting in my office and, I've got a several $100 phone. I'm looking at an iPad that has notes. I'm on a, couple $1,000 laptop. And listen, I'm not saying all this to brag. This stuff was purchased for my job, not by me. I've got monitors back here. I've got a very nice Taylor guitar hanging on the wall that was a gift given to me. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Keys to my truck. And it's not very valuable. But I look around my office and I see all of these things of value. But the most valuable thing in my office
That's
is
good.
right here.
Yeah.
And I know that's cheesy. I do. But don't fall into the love of money. I mean, go right back to that verse in Hebrews. Keep your life free from the love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me?
So good.
In the middle of a storm, that guitar ain't gonna do jack crap for me.
Yeah.
In the middle of a storm, this phone, and I'm not talking about a thunderstorm outside. I'm talking about a storm in the middle of just disaster. This computer, useless. But this word right here is my life. It's my bread. It's my future. It's my past. It's my present. It is everything. And so when we talk about how do finances factor into the gospel, it has to be the question, am I spending this for me or am I spending this for the glory of God? And I'm going to tell you, newsflash, you can buy a new truck and God still get the glory. You can.
Sure. Absolutely.
But you can also drive your clunker and give him thanks for what you have.
Yeah.
It's all about your heart.
Yeah.
And then also it's about this. How are we supposed to help those in need? Right? Man, I'll just be honest with you. I have been the benefactor of blessings this year. People have just showed up and showed out and met needs. And some of those maybe financial, some of those, physical needs, whatever. But if you have been given much, then you need to give much.
That's good.
And that's the gospel, giving
That's good.
sacrificially.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, and this is kind of where I'll end this. Every single year, I have students that want to go on mission trips or want to go to camp, and they just can't. And this is what I love about my church. Travis, I can sit in my office on a Monday morning at 8:30 a.m., write a message, send it out to our church, and say, hey, I need $10,000 in scholarships. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Ridiculous amount of money. By noon, I have $14,000 in scholarships given.
Wow.
And when I'm telling people, hey, we're covered, they're like, well, just put it towards the next one.
Yeah.
Put it towards the next one. And what happens is you go from taking 25 kids to camp to taking 80 because of selfless giving. And how do finances impact the gospel here? This is why. Because people gave money, that many more students heard the gospel and responded to the gospel.
That's right. That's
Same
right.
thing with mission trips. So your giving has power if it is for the advancement and further of the gospel.
So good. I I have certain people within my family tree, I guess I will say, that are multimillionaires. And when their time comes to depart this life, at most, they might be leaving behind their name on a brick, or donation to a hospital wing, or some adventure stories of things accomplished or done. And really what Randall just said there, as far as the gospel, it comes back to that sacrificial giving. What are you investing in? You can invest in everything this world has to offer you, and it won't matter 1 second on the other side of your last breath. And so the value of being debt free is so that you can give sacrificially. And when you give sacrificially, it opens up so many doors to talk about the one who ultimately gave sacrificially for us. And that's the gospel. Again, to be able to say to someone when they say, well, man, I see you being so generous. Why are you so generous? Because my king was first so generous to me. When I had a debt I couldn't pay, he got me out of debt by paying the bill in full. And you might say, oh, that's cheesy, man. That's stupid. It's the reality. To be able to talk to someone and say, that weight you feel when you just feel like you're going to be crushed because of what you owe or what you know is coming due. That's how sin was. And Jesus said, I've got that. I've got that. I'll take care of that. I like how Paul models that with Onesimus, right? Charge that to my account in the book of Philemon. Such a rich story. And there's so many verses. I love what Randall shared in Hebrews. I mean, we could talk about set your affection on things above. We could talk about Jesus saying it's harder for a wealthy man to enter heaven than a camel through the eye of a needle. What did he mean by finding you can't love God and money, the world? I mean, we could talk. There's so much in there. So our heart today was not to give anybody a Bible lesson per se, because the Bible speaks for itself pretty powerfully when it comes to what we're setting our affections on, what we're investing in. But our heart for you as men, I say this on behalf of all the executives here at Men of Valor, our heart for you is to lead with courage in this area, to take back this one element. If you have been struggling, that the enemy has gained ground in your life, take it back. Go to God today, start with God and say, I have struggled in this area and I want victory, and I'm going to start today. Maybe it's a conversation with someone. Maybe it's reaching out, looking, where can I get some resources? Who are some people I can talk to? Going to your local pastor, going to a friend in the community, but make this a gospel issue and it'll change your life. If it's not a gospel issue and it's just, I want the ability to do what I want to do, you're going to have ups and downs throughout your life in this area. And that's just not how God wants you to live. So any final thoughts, closing words you got for us, Randall? Man, I loved everything you shared. It encouraged me and also gave me some great talking points with my bride and some of the men I meet with as well. Any final thoughts?
No, man, I appreciate your wisdom, appreciate your honesty, and I have definitely learned just from this conversation. And I echo what you said. Just want to encourage you guys. Hang in there, keep fighting. If this is a struggle of yours, seek help, and you're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. Also, hey Travis, can I borrow $5? Anyways, all right. Hey, thank you guys for joining us. I think Travis, you have some announcements.
Yeah, check's in the mail, Randall.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you guys. Love everything you had to say. Again, next week, I mentioned Jordan's coming back for round 2 of Financial Talk. He and Eric are going to close out our conversation on finances, looking at the area specifically of giving, tithing. I know we didn't get into that much today, and that's intentional because that's coming next week's episode. So tune back in for that. And then Eric and I will have the joy of ending the year with a recap for you guys and just talking through some stuff that's gone on and some stuff coming up, and just excited what God's doing. So we want to encourage you guys, just stay connected. We're blessed for what this podcast has been able to accomplish. It's just one element of the Men of Valor Ministries. And we're just humbled to be part of the Recovering Fundamentalist podcast group. met with those guys online this past Sunday night. Eric and I did, and just had some great conversations of what's coming in the future and hearing how God's using all the various podcasts under their umbrella to touch lives. Very, very encouraging. So stay tuned. There'll be more stuff coming that you'll hear about soon, and just excited for all that. Want to make sure you guys are aware, we talk about it all the time, but our 2024 conference, hey, if you're in a financial situation where you're healthy, don't go into debt, but if you're healthy and you want to be encouraged even more, I would encourage you, buy your ticket now for the conference. The speakers are just phenomenal. If you hadn't had a chance yet to check out who the speakers are, go into our community page and check that out. Go into our webpage, movministries.org, movministries.org. I'm blown away, Randall, by the speakers we get every year at our conference. I mean, 10, 12 breakout speakers every year, our main session speakers. They're me-ish just because it's mostly us executives, but the other guys we bring in, man, I'm charged up every year. I just so excited about it. So encourage you guys, get your tickets. If someone wants to know, hey, what can I get you for Christmas this year? Have them buy you a conference ticket. They're not that expensive right now. Go online and get yours. Our merch, community tab, anything you'd want to know about, it's all on our website, movministries.org. I want to encourage you guys, take a look at that. As always, thank you for joining us, and hope you guys will be back next week when the next episode drops. We love you guys. God bless, and have a fantastic rest of the day.
Peace.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode and that you will continue to join us on this journey to make disciples of men. Be sure to check out our social media outlets as well as movministries.org for any information, and be sure to join our digital men's community.
Hey guys, we wanted to let you know that Men of Valor podcast is proud to partner and be a part of the Recovering Fundamentalist Podcast Network. You can find their podcast and many other great podcasts by going to rfpnetwork.org. We would love for you to go and check them out as well. Hey, keep fighting, win today, and as always, go light it up for the King.